USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. And this episode is sponsored by the NCAA Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Detroit, Michigan. For tickets, visit ncaa.com/Frozen4. And Jim, while we're talking about Frozen Four,
previewing this year's Frozen Four and the events surrounding it, Dave Beachnau, he's the Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Sports for the Detroit Sports Commission, one of the organizations that will have a big hand in putting together this event. Dave, welcome. We're getting excited. We're getting really close to a big event in your city.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. We're as excited as you guys are, and looking forward to welcoming the Frozen Four back to Detroit for the first time in 10 years. So we've got a strong team in place. We're very intentional about our efforts and really looking forward to a great event come April.
You mentioned 10 years. It was the 2010 Frozen Four, one of Boston College's national championships that was held in your city. Everything that I look at about this Frozen Four feels very different. Of course, that one was held at Ford Field, the experiment of trying to move the event into a football field. The games weren't the greatest, but that's nothing you can control. The city, though, was so much different now than it was 10 years ago. In Little Caesars Arena, obviously one of the newest venues in sports, one of the newest venues in hockey, certainly will be the home for this. You go back 10 years, what has changed and what can folks expect that will be so different this time?
Well, first of all, I think anyone who hasn't been here since 2010 probably wouldn't recognize the city that it is today. We've literally had billions of dollars of investment that has taken place in and around the downtown core. New bars, restaurants, new hotels have opened, and it's really a vibrant city. We've just gone through an incredible transformation, and we're excited about where the city's come in such a short period of time, and really it's a tribute to a lot of the key stakeholders in town. The Ilitch family and organization who opened Little Caesars Arena 3 years ago. Dan Gilbert is another one who's made a significant investment in the city. And so when you have all those individuals, really committed to this city, it's really been transformational and something that I haven't seen in my time here with this organization. And it's been 26 years. So, I couldn't be more thrilled as to where the city is today.
A lot of college hockey fans have probably been out there and, many years past remember Frozen Fours at Joe Louis Arena. And that was in a totally different section of town from where Little Caesars is now. And from what I can see looking at maps, it's almost like you've created a sports complex down there with the baseball stadium, the football stadium, the hockey stadium, all very close together in what looks like almost one big footprint. How has that changed just sports in Detroit and how fans can kind of approach the game day experience?
It's certainly been a resurgence, with LCA that opened, as I said, almost 3 years ago now, and it's a stone's throw from Comerica Park where the Tigers play, and Comerica Park is adjacent to Ford Field, home of the Detroit Lions. But what has also happened is the Detroit Pistons have moved from the Palace of Auburn Hills to Little Caesars Arena. So we now have four teams within 4 blocks of one another. And I'd argue that we're the only city in the country with 4 major professional sports teams that are in such a dense area. And it's really created, a lot of energy and vibrancy because there's literally something going on every day or night of the week in that part of town. And when you think about the number of NHL, NBA games, Tigers play 81 home games, and the Lions, of course. But it's bigger than that. It's an entertainment district. The Fox Theater has, shows that go on, literally every night throughout the year, and the theater district in general. There's just a buzz about what's happening in the city, and we've seen so many people, visit Detroit. We've become much more of a leisure destination. People are coming here to spend a weekend, and that's something that we haven't seen in a long time.
The one other thing that stands out in my memory from 2010 was the Renaissance Center, which was the hotel that housed every one of the teams. It housed every one of the NCAA administrators, the media. Everything could be put in one space because of the size of what was one of the largest hotels I've ever stayed at. That venue also seemed to really supplement, even though it's not right next to the Little Caesars Arena or Ford Field 10 years ago, it still supplemented the experience I felt for the fans, because everybody felt like they were around something when they weren't at the arena. Is that I think is it's still there. From what I understand, it'll be a host hotel again this year, but that's another big part of what I remember from 2010.
It is, and it's still a hub of activity. As you mentioned, the largest hotel, not only in Detroit, but in the state of Michigan. And, it's a great hotel for exactly that, the teams, the NCAA staff and administrators, and it's on the riverfront, as you recall, which, if you look across the river, you'll see Canada, and that's another unique aspect to Detroit, is we're the only point where we're actually north of Canada. So kind of an interesting factoid there. But and part of the whole resurgence of the city is the redevelopment of the Riverwalk, and people are walking, biking, jogging along the Detroit River, which we hadn't seen 10 or 15 years ago.
We're talking with Dave Beachnau, from the Detroit Sports Commission, about the Frozen Four coming up April 9th and 11th in Detroit. Dave, each year, and we've seen it since 2010, each year, each new host city seems to roll out something new or different, or try something to add to the experience. Outside of the games, what kind of fan experience things are planned for Detroit?
Well, we'll have a lot of the traditional events, the Hobie Baker Award, the Frozen Fest, which is the Fan Fest, will actually be held outside of space, next to Little Caesars Arena, a great location, very accessible. And then, the team-themed bars for the four teams that are in town, where their fans can gather. And probably one of the unique aspects this year is, I mentioned the four professional sports teams that are within walking distance of one another. The Detroit Tigers happen to be in town, so on the off day, on that Friday, the Angels will be in town. So there's an opportunity for the college hockey fans to also take in a baseball game. So that off day can sometimes be a day where people can experience some different things, and I think here in Detroit they'll have that opportunity to do that. And just another aspect to visiting Detroit and doing something different.
You also mentioned that being an entertainment district, and I remember there being a fair amount of restaurants and nightlife there then, and it sounds like it's boomed even more. That's all really pretty walkable for fans, right? Somebody who's staying right around by the arena, everything is right there for them.
It is, and you talked about the hotel at the Renaissance Center, the Marriott, and while it's a mile to LCA, it's certainly walkable, and we have transit to get folks around. The People Mover loops around the central business district with about 13 different stops at different entertainment locations around downtown Detroit. But what is also open since then is we have a streetcar system called the Q Line, which runs up and down our main thoroughfare, Woodward Avenue. And so you can literally take that to Little Caesars Arena and back. And so we're looking forward to some great weather, but at the same time, if we have a little bit of inclement weather that weekend, folks can get to and from the arena without having too much exposure to it.
One of the things that's completely out of your control is what teams make it to the Frozen Four, and that has a little bit of an impact on attendance. And I know that the NCAA and us here at USCHO were a bit disappointed at the attendance in Buffalo, even though Buffalo did a really great job in putting on the event. Is attendance something that's been part of the discussions either within your organization or with the NCAA, and how is that looking right now?
No question about it. We were a little bit concerned being in Buffalo last year and seeing, the crowds, and certainly we've made sure that we've been proactive and put together a strong marketing and promotions plan to ensure that we've done everything within our control to make sure that everyone is aware of the Frozen Four and the fact that it's being held in Detroit, not just from a local market, but nationally as well. And we've got some strong leadership with our local organizing committee. Greg Hammerin, who is Senior Vice President and General Manager of Fox Sports Detroit, is chairing our committee and has done a phenomenal job in offering not only resources, but his own personal time to be sure that message is getting out. And actually, he was at the Beanpot the past 2 days and doing some interviews and really just getting the message out about Detroit. Further, we've taken the championship trophy and taken it on tour. So we're at select locations, on-campus games. The trophy was in Minnesota a couple weekends ago for Hockey Day in Minnesota. It was at the Beanpot on Monday and Tuesday. And so, it's just about building awareness and excitement about the Frozen Four coming to Detroit. And so, ticket sales are, I would say, fine, but at the same time, to your point, you're always somewhat dependent upon who those four teams are, and we don't want to take that for granted or take that at risk. And so, we're hopeful by the time that the field is announced that we're close to a sellout or a sellout is reachable.
Just going to the Frozen Four every year, as some fans do, is really a terrific experience. I'm going to put in that plug no matter who gets into it. And of course, with North Dakota doing so well this year, maybe that'll take care of itself too. More with Dave Beachnau from the Detroit Sports Commission in a moment. First, a word from our sponsor, the NCAA Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Detroit.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online.
Every time you show up, every time you make your presence heard, whether you clap your hands or stomp your feet, lead the chant or join the chorus. However you choose to be a fan, you make the game.
The NCAA Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Visit ncaa.com/Frozen4 to get your tickets today.
Let's continue now with our discussion of the 2020 Frozen Four with Dave Beachnau from the Detroit Sports Commission. What is it about the Frozen Four that coming to Detroit that you're most excited about?
Well, I think, first and foremost, this is a hockey town, and certainly the Red Wings coined that phrase, but it affords the opportunity for, hockey fans, for hockey players at every level to experience an NCAA national championship, and to be able to bring that to our city is one of the things that I'm proud of and get the most enjoyment out of, is whether it's the Frozen Four or any major event, for us to provide that experience to the local residents is really fulfilling.
We're talking with Dave Beachnau, Senior Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Sports for the Detroit Sports Commission. Before I let you go, you kind of get a little bit of a test run coming up in a couple of weeks when you have the Michigan State game at Little Caesars Arena. That's always a great event for the city of Detroit. But this year with the Frozen Four coming, I assume that'll take on a little bit of a more important role to help promote college hockey right down there in the city.
Yeah, Duel in the D on February 17th. It's always a great event for downtown Detroit, but again, to your point, it affords us a tremendous opportunity to highlight and promote the fact that the Frozen Four will be in Detroit. I know that Michigan's having a little bit of a down year. Michigan State, on the other hand, they seem to be playing some pretty good hockey at the right time. And so with a little bit of luck, who knows who might be here in Detroit. But you're always hopeful that you'll have a local or regional team that is able to advance to the Frozen Four, and we're hopeful that will happen this year.
Well, we really do look forward to the trip out. I know for Ed, we're both in our over 20 Frozen Fours for both of us, so it's always an event we look forward to each year. So thanks for taking the time, Dave, and I as you keep the planning going for this event, I wish you the best of luck, and look forward to catching up in person sometime very soon.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for having me. We look forward to seeing you guys here very shortly.
Jim, it's fascinating to talk about all the preparations for an event like this. And we've seen it behind the scenes. There's so many different pieces. There's a manual for the host city that's multiple pages long. They have to go through all kinds of proposals to even be accepted as a host city. And then there's a lot of detail that the NCAA requires. So it's a busy job to pull this together. And the fact that a city can pull it off as well as everybody does is really a testament to the cities that host this event.
Yeah, it is. I think that, a lot goes into it. It's, you're really thinking that the day you win the bid, it could be 2 or 3 years in advance, or it could be, as in the case of Tampa when they first won, I think it was 6 or 7 years before they actually got to host the event. So, but from that day that you win the bid, you're really on the clock. You're already thinking about what we're going to do to make this special. And you see a lot of these advanced teams out at Frozen Fours 1 or 2 years out trying to see how different cities have done it. I'm impressed by Detroit. They do seem to be making a bigger investment in terms of their advanced work. Obviously, taking the National Championship trophy around the country, doing small media tours. They've got some media flying in for that game on February 17th. They're putting some extra financial resources and obviously extra blood and sweat into it all. I hope it comes out, because this is a very different city, and I think that anybody that just has a picture of what it was in 2010, they should expect something totally different here in 2020.
Well, I think it's a plus that the Tigers are in town. I know in 2010, a number of fans went to a game right nearby. In fact, it was very close to Ford Field. Speaking of Ford Field, Little Caesars Arena is going to be a much better place to hold this. It was an experiment. It was worth trying for attendance. Over 30,000 people got to see the games. But there were some things that were not as great. It was not super comfortable for teams. They had golf carts to transport goalies because it was just so far to walk to the ice, and maybe not the best sight lines. That is out of the equation. This is a state-of-the-art, terrific arena. And a nightlife and restaurant area that I thought was pretty good in 2010 sounds like it is much, much better. So it should be a great fan experience.
That's for certain. When you go to the teams, yes, you're in a hockey arena, and it now makes a lot more sense, and the venue is smaller. I remember when they announced Detroit and they said that they were going to put it at Ford Field. I loved the concept, because all I could imagine was how popular the Frozen Four was each year, and how it was almost becoming what basketball was. And the NCAA basketball tournament has been hosted in a dome stadium, of upwards of 50, 60, 70,000 seats every year for some time now. And I could have seen hockey heading in that direction if there was some success. You still ended up putting in more than 34,000 fans for every game of the Frozen Four in 2010. But it just in a football stadium, that doesn't feel significant. And it really was. People forget just how great the actual crowd numbers were. But in terms of what is down there now, I remember being right next to Comerica Park and walking past that at times, and there was games going on that year as well. Now to have the hockey arena right there, the hockey basketball arena right there, and have all these new restaurants, all these new bars, all these new things that are just going to make the fans that I know love that part of the Frozen Four, the entertainment factor, the hospitality factor, the foodie factor. I think that they'll all, from what I have done in my research, it seems like they're all going to have a great time.
Every year something new is added, and it sounds like having a headquarters location, a bar or restaurant for each team is a pretty good innovation.
Yeah, that's something that has been tried in a few different venues and has worked out. It does make sense just to kind of assign the 4 teams their own venue and then kind of make that your gathering place, your headquarters. And it'll be fun. I think that's when you can be around your people, and that's usually fans of one school all want to be around their fans that week. Anything you can do to make that more possible is always a good thing.
And there's no truth to the rumor that Ford Field would be the headquarters for North Dakota if they're in.
It almost might need to be.
Well, we're looking forward to the Frozen Four, and we'll be there with our podcasts and, of course, the whole USCHO.com crew. Our episodes have been sponsored by the NCAA Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Detroit. For tickets, visit ncaa.com/Frozen4. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.